Welcome to Penalty Box Radio, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. Goldstone Financial Group is an experienced team of professionals who will help ensure you receive distinguished service with a plan tailored to your retirement goals. I'm your host, Ann Kimmel. I am usually joined by my co-host, Sean Smith, but tonight we are joined by great friend of the show, Anthony Pellegrino of Ice Insider. It says here, make nice with Anthony. First of all, I just want to say, I know last week Sean did not get the wear a jacket to the show memo. I got the memo today. We are looking spiffy, if I do say so myself.
We're matching, and I love it. And both suits,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, this is a good night. We're looking great,
We are feeling very sharp.
and
this
we have a
evening.
great show to get to.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We had a dress for it.
We did. And I will tell you this, we have been talking hockey in the studio for about 45 minutes before we hit the go button. So we are fired up, blood's pumping. We are ready to talk hockey. Of course, at Penalty Box Radio, we always like to kick off the show with what we call our puck drop topic. So, Anthony, I am going to drop the puck with this question, and I'm going to let you answer this first, and we'll see where we land and what we reveal here. Tonight's puck drop topic. Nashville Predators went 2-2 this PBR week. Of course, the PBR week is Wednesday to Wednesday. They got wins over Toronto and Carolina. They had 2 4-1 losses to the Anaheim Ducks and the St. Louis Blues. So my question, Anthony, is this. Did the Nashville Predators create anything this week to build on heading into this offseason? What do you think?
Listen, when we look at the fact that they won, right, twice,
Yes.
Toronto, Carolina, that's great on the surface level, right? Because it's like, okay, they won. Could this be a Stanley Cup caliber team? That's where I'll stop you. Because we look at the fact that in both of these wins, being heavily outshot, not the win against Toronto, let me correct myself, but the win against Carolina.
Yeah.
If UC Saros doesn't have a spectacular game that he has, there is no reason you're winning that game.
Yeah.
And do I think it's something to praise that you're starting to see someone like Luke Evangelista coming out of his shell, and you see the confidence, that breakaway goal last night? That is strictly due to confidence. I think you're not going to see these plays by Evangelista at game 1 of the regular season, right? But now you're seeing his zone entries and looking almost ahead. He's looking so much so ahead of the play that we're starting to see these chances for him, like the 3-point night against Toronto. We're starting to see, right, chances for Evangelista. And that is a player that you want to see end on a high note heading into next season, right? Because if he is back, right?
Oh, now don't even put things out there.
Right?
Some things we just don't say out loud.
I get it. That brings me to my next point, that he is one of those guys right now that has something to compete for.
Yes.
Right. Which we're going to get later into Brunette's comments.
Yes.
Earlier this week. However, he's someone that is playing for that next contract. So that is something you certainly want to see from a young player that you're looking to use in this sort of retool, rebuild, how Trotz goes about the offseason. UC Saros as was someone that I can say, especially as of late, you are succeeding, UC. And here's why. He's 5-2 in his last 7 games, 5 wins, 2 losses. That's something that I think has gotten very overshadowed by.
I was surprised by that stat.
This amount of losing. And the thought kind of came in my head that what if Saros started this season how he's playing now?
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a rough stretch. Obviously, that first game, he was injured and what went on in the preseason. However, if you started that season as UC Saros and you're playing the way you are now, that is something to build off of for the players. Do the first 10 games look different? And does that trickle into how the rest of the team plays? and where we are now at game, what, 60?
70. I think we're at 71.
Goodness
I know.
gracious.
It's been
11
84
more.
years.
Right.
It's been the longest season.
I-
It really has been a long season.
Right.
I like what you're saying about UC Saros. And this is one of those pieces that I think is going to be part of a very in-depth Hawktopsy, which is a made-up word, where, Barry Trotz is going to turn this season over and he is going to look at every single thing. And, you look back at those first 5 games that the Nashville Predators had, 5 losses to kick off this season. Would this season look different if those 5 losses hadn't happened? You're talking about how UC Saros is playing. UC Saros is one of those guys where if he can start next season feeling really confident, I think that helps the team. You mentioned Luke Evangelista. Luke Evangelista, a third of his season goals, my friends, have come in the last 3 games. That's right. 3 goals to assist in his last 3 games. This is where you want to see a young player like Luke Evangelista be. You just wanted to see it before game 71. And in his defense, this has been a tough season for Evangelista with injuries and with, kind of trying to find some chemistry. He played for a while with Tommy Novak. Obviously, Tommy Novak not here anymore. But you're seeing Luke Evangelista find some confidence, and that is so important for these young guys.
Can this pose, though, what if next season looks the same for Evangelista? He doesn't find his game until, say, halfway through the regular season. And that's something that is realistic. You have to look at it because the offseason is very long, right?
Yes.
Development, great, whatever. Take a vacation, get away from this season, right? Come back fresh. However, does that become a liability that it's going to take him half a season to get to where he is? UC Saros, that's another thing that I wanted to really reiterate a second. This season isn't on Saros in any way.
Thank you for saying
I
that.
think
louder for the people
I've
in back.
heard it. I've heard it out there.
Yeah.
And do I think he could have started the season better? Yes, of course. Like the rest of the team.
Everybody. Yeah.
If Saros starts game 1 like he is now, that is what the Predators need to gain leverage to not be in this spot next season if the roster looked the exact same.
Yeah.
That right there would do it. It's a culture thing. Your goaltender's playing well. That brings up the rest of the team. However, Ann, back to the word liability, does it become a liability that maybe Saros too? He's known for having slow starts to the regular season. Does that become oh no, if our starting goaltender has a struggling start to the season, could that be part of the Hawktopsy?
Yes.
That, the culture, the environment isn't great when that's part of the slow start to the season. What do you think?
I think that's something that Barry Trotz absolutely has to dig into. Whether it is, a veteran like UC Saros, whether it is a younger player that you need to keep developing at maybe a faster pace than what we've seen from Luke Evangelista, Barry Trotz has to have answers for why this season has led to very slow, growth is not linear. You don't expect any of these players, veterans or young players, to just start the season game 1 and be pretty good and then just go straight up to great. That's just not how life works. That's not how growth works. But you want to see a trend in the right direction. And I think that across the board on the roster for Nashville, the trend has not been generally up as far as growth for the younger players. And I think as far as production and impact for the veteran players. And that, I think, is one of the big questions Barry Trotz has to wrestle with. Why is it that really no demographic on this roster has had a career season, has had a profound impact? Set aside the win-loss record, what is it about this season that has kept young players from developing maybe at a faster pace? And again, I want to say Evangelista, we know, has dealt with injuries, and that's one of those things you can't predict. But you have to be able to answer the question, what needs to happen to set up veterans and young players, offensive, forwards, defensive defensemen, your goaltender? What has to happen to put them in a position where they can grow over the course of a season on the right trajectory? That's a big question.
Of course. And when you look at the success that this team's had, the wins, right? The success in wins, you can't be outshot like last night, 35-16 on a regular basis
No,
and win
no.
and call it a good win. If you're getting outshot like that, grinding it out, saying a handful of times in the season, right? That is acceptable. That is a good win in the right circumstance. But when it's this is the only way that the team is winning, that to me is part of the reason why the Predators are where they're at.
Yep.
How you address it in the offseason to say we need wins where we're the team that has 30 shots and 4
We're the
goals,
better team.
right? Exactly.
We are the better team.
You don't feel right now like they're the better team when they're winning. And when
Right.
they're losing, it just feels like, can these 60 minutes be done? Right?
Absolutely. We mentioned that Carolina game coming up. We're going to talk about the things that went right for the Nashville Predators this PBR week and some things that went wrong. But friends, if you want things to go right with your financial future, we want to encourage you to talk to Goldstone Financial Group. Planning for your future doesn't have to be complicated. At Goldstone Financial Group, they help you create a personalized financial plan to secure your retirement. Whether you're thinking about your 401k, IRA, or you just want to invest smart, they've got you covered. Just like the Nashville Predators strategize for every game, Goldstone Financial strategizes for your financial success. Visit goldstonefinancialgroup.com today and start planning for tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, game day tomorrow. And if you are looking for a great place to catch a Preds game, I'd send you to Beyond the Edge in East Nashville. But friends, don't just take my word for it. Beyond the Edge has been voted the best sports bar for the second year in a row in the Scene Nashville Readers Poll. With more than 30 TVs and 25 beers on tap, you will never miss any of the action. They've got great food, great drinks, and it is the perfect spot to watch the game. Visit them at 112 South 11th Street in East Nashville or online at beyondtheedge.net. Make Beyond the Edge your go-to for every big game. I have 2 ad reads, just so you know, coming into this one.
Okay.
And then
What do you want to jump into?
let's do the Bruno comments
Yeah,
first. I
that'll
think
go
that's a good, I think that's a good juicy one. And then
Never just I
Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio. Looking for your next night out? Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has something for everyone. Whether you are into bowling, laser tag, my personal favorite, axe throwing, or their newly expanded arcade, the fun never stops. Plus, their full menu and bar make it the perfect spot for group events and birthday parties. Oh, it's also a great place to check out a Predators game while you're there. Check them out at starsandstrikes.com. Also, check out Green Ventures Landscaping. Green Ventures Landscaping transforms your outdoor dream into reality. Their family-owned team specializes in patio design, pool decks, retaining walls, and more. They create stunning landscapes that last with personalized service and expert craftsmanship. From irrigation to maintenance, they'll ensure your garden thrives, providing a space that's both functional and beautiful. Visit them at greenventureslandscaping.com today for a free quote. Let Green Ventures Landscaping cultivate your perfect outdoor sanctuary today. Before we talk hockey, can we just give a shout out to Brandon for playing what in my day was known as rock music? Now it is called classic rock. But I'm telling you, your music selection never disappoints.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Excellent. Oh man, y'all,
Very good.
I will not pick up where the music left off, but just know I could. Anthony, we're going to kind of look back at this past PBR week, Wednesday to Wednesday, as we do on Penalty Box Radio. Some things went right. Some things maybe went a little wrong. So let's just jump into this. One of the things we pride ourselves on here at Penalty Box Radio is we like to be drama free, but do want to talk about a little kerfuffle that kind of arose over the past week that had to do with comments that Andrew Brunette made after the Anaheim loss, as compared to comments that Andrew Brunette made at morning skate before the Toronto game Saturday morning. It appeared after the Anaheim game that maybe he was calling out the veterans. He sort of corrected that statement pre-Toronto game. We're going to play a clip of those two comments. In the middle, you're going to hear a little record scratch, friends. That's like, it's a new day, and this was the other comment. Then we're going to discuss. This is what Andrew Brunette had to say in those two situations this week.
It's challenging. We got a lot of guys that haven't been in this situation with our veteran guys for a while. I think mentally it's a drain. It's hard. But they're going to be here a long time, or they have a long time on their contracts. And, I think for them, it's important that they're supposed to be our leaders. They have to set their example going a certain way. So our young guys see that one, we never want to be here again, but when we are here, we have to handle ourselves with a little bit more professionalism than we are right now. I'm not knocking our team for attitude. And it was never meant to come across that way. It was just, I think we're in a hard spot, and I've been in this spot, and it sucks. And I think it's important you handle yourself the right way was all the message, and was nothing about anything about our team. I think we got great leaders. Obviously we're missing Yost, but guys that won cups, guys that have been through all kinds of different things, and it's really hard on them right now. And, we just have to find a way here to get to that finish line, to find that positive feeling. And, they're, like I said, the leadership in that room is strong, even without Yost.
So a lot of people, Anthony, stepped away from those two different conversations feeling like, okay, Andrew Brunette said one thing one night, backtracking or trying to reframe it in another situation. And it caused a lot of conversation. Is he calling out the veterans? Is he saying, he used the word professionalism, which I think when you hear it, it tends to imply not X's and O's in execution, but attitude. He then, on Saturday morning said, hey, look, I'm not talking about attitude. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm talking about kind of getting through the season. And he did say this season sucks. Like, this is really hard on these veterans. And I think that's true. When you hear those two comments coming at different times, what was your takeaway from that situation?
I think, Anne, it could have been a little bit of clarification too, as listen, our veterans have never been in this position before.
Mm-hmm.
They need to step it up, instead of, the veterans need to step it up. We're horrible. The veterans aren't playing how they're supposed to play, and they're here for the long run, instead of this is their first time in this position. They need to do better how they're handling it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And you're right. I think we did see some of the non-coach, the personal side of Brunette, right? Because it does suck to be in this position and come to work every day knowing that you are playing to end the season in a way, but you can't play like you're playing to end the season, right?
Correct.
You have to play that you are winning the Stanley Cup, but the reality is, that these are the last 11 games. You're not in a
You're
playoff
not going to
spot,
the playoffs.
right? So how do you handle this? And that is, I think, what he was looking for from the veterans. You guys need to handle this in a way that the younger players can look up and say, just because we're out doesn't mean we're down.
Yeah. I like that. And I think that that's a really true statement. I think how you walk out adversity is a part of growing in this league because this is a tough league. It is so difficult. They call it the hardest trophy to win in sports for a reason because it is so difficult. There's so much adversity in the NHL. The other thing I would say where I feel like maybe there may be smoke, I just don't think there's any fire to this. I don't think that it needed to be a big thing. I think audience matters. And I liken it to this, if my best friend says something to me about like, hey, what's going on with your husband? And if he has irked me that day, I'm going to tell my best friend, my husband irked me today. If somebody else comes up to me and they're like, how long have you been married? Oh, 26 years. Oh, that must be great. I'm going to say, yeah, it is great. Like audience matters. Andrew Brunette, after a game, is going to have a message for the Nashville media. That message, of course, is going to get out. It'll get back to the players. I don't think Andrew Brunette said anything in that media room that has not been said in the locker room. I don't think there was anything that was a surprise. You turn the page to Saturday. The person who asked Andrew Brunette the question and clarified, are you calling them out about attitude? That was a Toronto media member. And, keep in mind, Hockey Night in Canada, they're in town. You know what? You're going to have a different conversation. And I don't think it's Brunette talking out both sides of his mouth. I don't think he's walking anything back. I don't think that this is a mixed message. I just think you have certain conversations with certain people at certain times. Pre-game, before a game, you're in a different mindset as a head coach than you are post-game after a loss. I just don't think that there is as much drama to this situation as maybe it felt like over the weekend and as much attention as it drew from people.
And I also want to add that this isn't something where, the way the pattern goes that Brunette speaks to the media and the players hear it and say, oh my goodness, coach just said this about us, right? They're going to talk one-on-one as a group,
Absolutely.
offensive core, defense, leadership as a team before or after the game, right? And that is going to be reiterated. What the media gets is what Brunette feels should be said from almost everything that he said to the team, right? How does he want that to look on Twitter, X,
Right.
Facebook, online, right?
Correct.
How do you want the general public? What image of the team do you want to portray to them? The whole team knows it. They
Right.
know all, like, it's not like, and when the reporter asked him again on Saturday about, like, O'Reilly has heard that directly from Brunette.
Yes, this is not news
He
to the
is their
veterans.
coach. It's not just,
Yeah.
oh, he said something about, right?
Yes. I don't think Philip Forsberg was like, did you hear what Andrew Brunette said about, I just don't think it goes down like that. So we wanted to talk about that. There was a little bit of drama, and I think maybe just there's not quite as much of a juicy story there. One thing I do want to point out that I think went very right this PBR week, can we please give a shout out to Michael Bunting? New Nashville Predator, Michael Bunting. Friends, here's what we know for sure about Michael Bunting. He can score goals without an appendix. We know it for sure. And he has done that. Really love what we've seen from him. Anthony, my favorite thing, this is a guy who is as advertised, goes to the hard places. He's getting those greasy goals. Let's talk about this. Nashville has the second fewest rebound goals in the entire league. Nashville, this season has not scored a lot of those greasy goals. They have not had a plethora of second and third chances that have converted into goals. I like what we're seeing from Michael Bunting. I think it's interesting because I think we have the personnel to have been doing that. They haven't done it, but welcome, Michael Bunting. Thank you for showing us the slot is not lava.
And that's right. 2 goals in his last 3 games with the Preds, both on the power play, as we mentioned. Nashville desperately needs more character players with a found identity as a player. We know they need that identity as a team, but as a player, and a great example for Zach Leroux to look up
Yes.
to now is Michael Bunting.
Yep. I love that. A couple more things we want to get to after the break, talking about things that went right in Nashville, some things maybe that didn't go great over this PBR week. We're going to come back and talk about that. Friends, as Preds fans, we know the importance of playing both offense and defense. At Goldstone Financial Group, they apply that same mindset to your retirement. They're not just about growing your assets, but also protecting them. With decades of experience, they can help you build a strategy that secures your financial future. Head to goldstonefinancialgroup.com to learn more and get your game plan in place. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio on 102.5 The Game. Stars and Strikes in Smyrna has everything you need for a fun-filled outing. Bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, and their huge new arcade. With a full menu and bar, it's also the perfect place to host birthday parties or group events. And if you're a Preds fan, you can catch the game while enjoying great food and drinks. Visit starsandstrikes.com and start planning your next adventure. Anthony, before the break, we were talking about this PBR week, things that we felt like went right, maybe some things that went a little wrong. One of the things that I think we got an update on that this one does not feel great. Got word from Barry Trotz Tuesday when he was talking with 102.5. Not likely that we will see Roman Josi back this season. Of course, he is out with a, quote, upper body injury in hockey. That could be anything, but I suspect perhaps this could be some sort of a head issue. We're not sure. I don't want to confirm that. Look, here's where I stand on that. Hate to not have him here. I think you can see what a difference Roman Josi makes for this team, but also no reason for him to return. How do you feel about Josi perhaps gone for the rest of the season?
You know, it's unfortunate, obviously, right? And we wish him all the best. I really do hope that next season he is back healthy. If it is a concussion or head related, that it doesn't impact him or his on ice play. But it's one of those things, and I've reiterated this a lot lately. I feel like, especially with the defensive core, you need to take the most of the opportunity, right? So, okay, Yossi's out. Let's bring Shea to a next level. He's never been in the position where he's the leader amongst all defensemen. How does he grow into that role? He has been excellent so far. We talked about it before the show. Very impressed with how Shea's handled this, especially off ice.
Yeah.
How he's mentoring, right, these younger defensemen. But it is a chance for guys like Justin Barron, Andreas Englund to make a name for themselves while Josi is out. That's your top defenseman. Now you're having Shea is your top guy, but you also, everyone else, it's almost still up for grabs.
Right. And, you know, as much as, like you say, you hate not to have Roman Josi on the ice, for his sake, better safe than sorry. And the silver lining in that dark cloud is you are going to get time for Barry Trotz to get his eyes on some of these blue liners and see what he has. You mentioned Brady Shea. Brady Shea has played the most games in the Nashville Predators system of anybody playing on the Nashville Predators blue line right now. That is astounding.
Can you imagine telling someone that at this time last season that this would be where the team is at next season?
That would be a no for me. Yeah. And like you mentioned, there are some players that Barry Trotz is going to have to kind of make a decision on. And these are players who have something to play for. You talk about there's 11 games left. There's no postseason. Well, the defensemen have to show Barry Trotz what they have. He's got some decisions to make on the blue line going forward. What does he have? You know, big fan here of Mark Del Gaizo's play. I really like that he has been back up here. He signed a 1-year deal in September. What are they going to do with Mark Del Gaizo? You know, that ice time is really valuable for him. Spencer Stastny, we're finally getting kind of a consistent look at him. You mentioned Englund, you mentioned Barron. Jordan Osterley is here. You know, I always say before you go to the grocery store, look and see what you got in your cupboard. Before Barry Trotz goes out in free agency or spends draft capital getting himself somebody defensively, he has got to know what he already has. And that's what this time is for.
And you need to look at who you're getting in return. If he's going to spend draft capital on a defenseman, as we've seen rumors circulating, right, about getting someone to accompany Josi, how does that player fit into Nashville's system? Is it going to be a top line defenseman that we can say that is our money well spent, our draft capital well spent on a defenseman that will be here for a long run? But if you're just going to get someone that is a filler, you know, one of a Justin Barron or an Englund, and maybe you're only going to give up a third, but why not try and pursue maybe a 31-year-old defenseman in free agency? Obviously, the free agent class this year is not ideal for where the team sits, but you can still weed out and find who you need to fit into, even if it's just for a bridge year next year. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on pulling from free agency for this defensive.
I think Barry Trotz has to look everywhere. And of course, I think that's the place to start, because I think Barry Trotz is going to want to get somebody who is NHL ready. I don't think you want to look at drafting somebody and hoping you can pop them up. I think Nashville has a pretty robust defensive pipeline, but I don't know that they have anybody that's ready to jump up and be that guy with Roman Josi. And that's what they need. They need that guy to play with the guy. So I think every option has to be on the table, whether it is looking around in free agency, turning over every stone, saying, hey, some of this draft capital could go towards this. That's a big need. Here's the one that I am so interested in seeing what happens. Friends, we got to talk about Nick Blankenburg.
That's right.
He is making us talk about him, and I am here for this. I get it. Nick Blankenburg's stats, we always joke about the Preds love their big defensemen. His stats of inches over 6 feet tall, not super impressive. But you want to talk about somebody stepping in and doing what has to be done. You got to be impressed with Nick Blankenburg. Has he done enough where it is going to dramatically change his trajectory in the NHL and his role, whether it's with the Predators or another team? I don't know. But he's doing everything he can to keep his name in conversations and to keep eyes on him. And I like what we see from him.
Exactly. And when you look at his stats, 8 points in 13 games with Milwaukee was enough to turn heads, that when injuries started to go down in the beginning of the season, he was a player that earned the call up to Nashville. And when he came up, undeniably, he is a defenseman that, like you said, he's keeping us talk about him because he's playing so well that we have to talk about him. This is where I see almost that is why the Nashville Predators are not a playoff team, because on a playoff team, you see maybe Shea and Blankenburg as a depth third pairing, right?
Right.
Excellent defenseman, but to have that be your cap for your defensive lineup, not great.
Yeah. Also have to remember next season, we're going to get back Jeremy Lauzon. Jeremy, we hardly remember what you look like, friend. Adam Wilsby as well, who I thought impressed in his time. We're talking about the defensive situation with the Nashville Predators. We talked about Barry Trotz is going to have to do a hawktopsy. It's going to be very, very involved. But here is where you kind of have to start. And Anthony, we're going to throw this out here and wrestle with this existential question when it comes to this season for the Nashville Predators. What do we know for sure after this season about the Nashville Predators? What can Barry Trotz say? This is a fact on which I can make a decision.
Well, this is something to dissect, right? And the biggest thing I think about just the entire situation of what went wrong falls back to training camp. And I know Brunette just said something weeks ago about the fact that we went wrong in training camp. We can't do that again. So when you look at that, you look at the fact that you didn't have the chemistry lined up with Stamkos, Marchessault, these guys that you expected. That is a problem that almost fixed itself, right? Now that it is starting to be fixed, we're seeing the chemistries form enough that we can say it's evident there's chemistry.
We're seeing some things.
Yes.
We're seeing some connections.
Is that enough to say that chemistry will be enough that next season this can be our top for the offensive unit? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And the skill in the lineup, I feel like, unfortunately, collided with the coaching and the lack of chemistry. Like I said, you need an idea in training camp. This is where I think they went wrong with that whole chemistry thing, considering the circumstance. You need an idea of what your first line looks like out of training camp.
Yeah.
Coming into this season, we were wrestling with the top line, the second line. How many throughout the entire season? We can't say, except for certain stints with O'Reilly, Marchessault, Stamkos, certain stints, we can't say when you think back this entire season as a whole, that was the top line for
Yeah.
the Nashville Predators. You just can't say that right now.
That's a really interesting point. And what is funny is, yes, the signings of Stamkos and Marchessault so exciting. And look, I know there are people that are like, it didn't work, friends. Hold your horses. Okay. I know people want to say it didn't work. We still have time, but when you have almost too many options for your top line, you spend a lot of time trying. You have opened up the number of combinations. And I agree with you. If you ask somebody else in the NHL, who's on Nashville's top line? I don't know that anybody can tell you, because I think those of us here in Nashville would be like, well, which game?
Right.
I'm not sure. And I think that's huge. I think that's one of those things that Nashville has to find out for sure. We know we don't have that this season. Gotta have that next season. Coming up, we're going to continue that discussion. We are also, oh, friends, it's the time that brings out the anxiety in me. We are going to make predictions. Very, very stressful around here. Just like the Nashville Predators are committed to winning on the ice, Goldstone Financial Group is committed to helping you win with your retirement planning. From tax strategies to investment advice, they make sure you're prepared for whatever comes next. Don't leave your financial future up to chance. Trust the experts at Goldstone Financial Group. Check them out at goldstonefinancialgroup.com and set yourself up for success. Transform your outdoor space with Green Ventures Landscaping, where imagination meets craftsmanship. Their family-owned business brings your vision to life with expert patio design, sturdy retaining walls, stunning pool decks, and efficient irrigation solutions. Their passionate team ensures every project is a masterpiece from inception to completion. Enjoy a seamless blend of beauty and functionality in your landscape. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com today for a free quote and watch your dreams grow into reality. Cultivate your perfect oasis with Green Ventures Landscaping. Beyond the Edge Sports Bar in East Nashville has just been voted best sports bar in the Scene Nashville Readers Poll. So if you're looking for the best spot to catch every Preds game, head over to Beyond the Edge. With over 30 TVs and 25 beers on tap, you will never miss a moment. It's the perfect place to relax with friends, grab some great food, and watch your favorite teams. Visit them at 112 South 11th Street in East Nashville, or check them out online at beyondtheedge.net, where every seat is the best seat in the house. Anthony, we have so much to talk about and so little time. We were talking about things that we know for sure, and I'm going to throw one out there, and it's going to be so vague, but I mean it so specifically. I think we know for sure that this didn't work. And I think it's a lot of things have come together, but when you have a team with the talent Nashville has and your record is 27, 36, and 8, it is not about bad bounces. There have been bad bounces for Nashville, but this didn't work. And I think it's going to take a lot of time and wisdom for Barry Trotz to sift through the elements of that, because as much as everybody wants it to be just one thing, just one decision is going to change this. I think we all want a problem to have one easy solution. I think this is a season that there's a lot to dig into and a lot that you need to address. I think we talked about the defense is going to need some retooling. You know, I think coaching is a conversation that's going to be something people are going to be listening for. I think it's something that Barry Trotz has to put on the table. You know, does this system match these players? I don't think it's necessarily a question of, is Andrew Brunette a good coach or a bad coach? I don't think that's the question. You know, I always joke and say, you parent the kids you have, not the kids you wish you had. You know, you may want to raise a baseball player, but he might like musical theater friends. And so you've got to make those things match. You know, I think it means something when, like I said earlier, there's not a demographic that's flourishing, and you've got to figure out why. And you have to figure out a way to give the veterans what they need to be the players that they are. I don't believe Steven Stamkos is done playing hockey. I don't believe Jonathan Marchessault is not a good hockey player. And I know those are frustration comments that people make. They have lots of good hockey left in them. How do you get that out of them? How do you get Fedor Svechkov in an elevated role to grow him? There is a lot that has to happen. This team has a lot of potential, but decisions have to be made in this offseason, because this didn't work. It didn't work.
Well said. And we could spend, if we had another hour, getting into the the conversation we had earlier about off air.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to put Svechkov up with someone like Stamkos to end the season, or solidify your top line? That's something everyone at home can think about. Does it make sense for Svechkov to play with Stamkos, Marchessault, try and get the most potential into next season out of Fedor Svechkov, or and Zach Leroux, Luke Evangelista, these young players? Or does it make sense to find your top line? Use these 11 games that we're going to find our top line going to next season. This is what it's going to look like. That's for them to decide. Otherwise, we would be here for another hour.
At least.
Prediction time. Real
quick, I want to throw out, here's one other thing I think we know for sure. Nashville, you might not think it's glamorous, but Nashville has solid goaltending. I think the Ananen move, I think was the right move. I think we know that UC Saros can do UC Saros things. And I think that's something Barry Trotz doesn't have to have that on his plate. So make some space. Goaltending, check. And I think that's a good thing.
And you look at Saros and the amount that he plays, it's good for the team to know that if you need Saros to take a rest, if Saros is injured, you're going to look to Ananen, and you know that Ananen can step up his play.
Right. Yep. You can kind of share that workload. We are going to get into the most stressful time of this whole hour for me. I'm not a big fan of gambling, but here we are. Nothing really is on the line, but a whole heck of a lot of pride and bragging rights. And I am obnoxious about those. So buckle up, friends.
And, you know, when you lose the amount of predictions that I lose, it doesn't become stressful anymore, because you know you're going to lose. Just wanted to throw that one out there for you.
Yeah, maybe that
I'm numb to the losing.
Okay. Well, let's look back at last week. Sean's prediction. It was going to be a big PBR week, y'all. They were going to go 3-1. They went 2-2. Bless. Sean, I love the positivity. Anthony, last week, You said loss against Anaheim, check. Loss versus Toronto, they stunned us all. A revenge win versus St. Louis. Oh, St. Louis. St.
That
Louis.
was a rough one.
That was a
4-1
rough
loss.
one. And then a loss versus Carolina. I don't know how it happened, but the Preds won versus Carolina. I also love that you said Mark Jankowski scores versus the Preds. Noted goal scorer Mark Jankowski, who has been tearing it up in Carolina.
That would, and I said this last week, it would be the final punch in the gut
On
for the
brand.
Predators if Jankowski scored. Like, that would just be how the script goes according to this season.
On brand.
But it didn't. But that
didn't.
would have been at least somewhat entertaining.
All right, Anthony. New PBR week, new prediction. What do you have?
I think they're going to build off the Carolina win,
Okay.
and it's going to propel them to a win tomorrow against St. Louis. First win
Ooh.
against the Blues this season.
Okay.
Loss to Vegas
Yeah.
on Saturday.
Okay.
Loss against Philadelphia and a win over Columbus. I am keeping it very, very surface level.
Very
I'm not going to
vague.
say anything else. Very vague.
Okay.
That's my prediction. He can decide from that. How about you, Ann?
Okay. So you're saying 2-2 with specific win.
2 and
I
2.
would love to see them beat St. Louis. St. Louis, though, they have had their energy drinks right now. That's interesting. I would love to see them beat St. Louis. I don't know if they can do it. Here is my prediction. Philip Forsberg, my friends, is Forsberging. He has been going. He is on a 5-game point streak. I believe Philip Forsberg is a guy where once he gets going, he going. And so I am going to say that Philip Forsberg is going to have a goal and 2 more assists this PBR week in these next 4 games, 2 home games, 2 away games. Philip Forsberg, 2 goals and an assist. I am locking it in. What do you think? Do you think you think I'm off base on this one?
That's very
Argue against me, I dare
that's
you.
specific, but I see it happening, right? I think over the course. Why am I saying this? He's about to choose answers.
Look,
But
the
I'll
truth
just-
will set you free.
I will be honest. A goal and 2 assists in 4 games is viable for Forsberg. I think he'll make it happen. 5-game point streak, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he can do, and just try and end the season on a good note.
Yeah.
For Forsberg, Scoresberg, maybe.
I have loved Forsberg and Evangelista playing together. Can I just I know we talked about Evangelista earlier, but I have really loved that. I want to see that continue for both of them. But yeah, I'm feeling Forsbergish. I really am. All right. Look, you just go with how the Holy Spirit leads you. The hockey
Parker.
Holy Spirit leads you. But Brandon, I want you to give it to us straight. Who are you going with and why?
We're gonna go with Ann this week.
Woo!
Wow.
Anne's taking her victory lap. Why? Besides the obvious.
Besides the fact that I lose
you-
every single
and you
time.
argued for me. Why else are you going to go with?
Besides the fact that you just call me Parker, I'm kidding.
It's on the script.
I didn't change that part. You
It's
just got to know.
It's fine. It seems more doable. I don't see them winning against St. Louis tomorrow. St.
Yeah.
Louis is just hot. I don't know what they're doing over there, but they've just been hot these past few games. Yes, probably we're going to lose against Vegas.
Yeah.
Yes, we're probably going to lose against Philadelphia. I hope we win against Columbus, but
We're probably
I see a
gonna
little
lose.
Philip Scoresberg happening.
Yeah.
Rightfully
St.
so.
Louis is tough. I'm telling you, St. Louis. But what is interesting is not very many people across the league are really talking about it. St. Louis is going to show up in the first round and smack somebody.
But you see the momentum. I think it's going to come down to the momentum built solely by UC Saros over
be.
the Carolina game.
Yeah.
And if he has another one of those stellar nights, the Preds find a way to get 2-3 in. That's how they're going to beat St. Louis. It's not going to be some 5-1,
No.
5-2 kind of victory, but I think you're going to see in some fashion Saros play up to the level he just played against Carolina.
Yeah.
And maybe Forsberg is hot, gets another goal. Stamkos 2 goals.
Okay. Anything could happen this season, friends, because
Literally anything.
anything is
Come on.
possible. Anything is possible. Well, we'll be back next week, of course, and report in on who was right, who wasn't right. I'll be taking a victory lap this week, waiting for the predictions to roll in. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to Penalty Box Radio live on 1025 The Game, presented by Goldstone Financial Group. If you want smart investing with a company with a proven track record of fiduciary responsibility, look no further than Goldstone Financial Group. Also, thanks to Stars and Strikes of Smyrna and Beyond the Edge, East Nashville. We will see you next week.